And welcome back. And as promised before the break, we're going to be viewing once again the press conference held by the Mennonites that were arrested by the Guatemalans. Of course, this is a story that is still unfolding, and there are some sides to it that we find very interesting in terms of investigative kind of reporting. So definitely we'll be able to set the stage and then hopefully follow it over the next couple of days. But this is what we know so far as was viewed through their press conference.
Yes, and of course the incident is said to have happened last Thursday, and the reports started coming in, but we weren't able to get. We had confirmation from the from Roger Plett, but he held a press conference yesterday to be able to paint the entire picture as to what took place. It's a very interesting story, and there's still a bit of investigation that still has to be done, and of course our coverage continues. But we'll start off with the story of Roger Plett's detention as told by him.
This was on Thursday afternoon, correct? Thursday. I was on my dad's ranch there with the tractor there. I was on backup to outfire if needed, and so I was close to the border when I was we had the fire line there, and if the fire was supposed to cross the fire line, I was supposed to out the fire with the tractor and with the water. When I was in the tractor, when suddenly there was 10 military persons and about 5 people in civilian clothing. They came running out of the forest, and the military, they surrounded the tractor, and the one person in civilian clothing, he started beating his machete against the side of the tractor door, yelling in Spanish, telling me to get out of the tractor. Me, for fear of my life, I didn't try to run with the tractor. I climbed out of the tractor. When I climbed out of the tractor, the military men, the men in camouflage clothing, they came and surrounded me. The guy in charge, he then pushed me towards the forest, telling me to walk. And so I started walking towards the forest, towards the Guatemalan side. When we reached a fire line that they had chopped in the forest, we walked southward. When we reached to a patch of heavy smoke, one of the military guys, he shoved me on my back and said, "Run." I didn't comply right away because I did not understand why I was supposed to run. He shoved me again in the back and he said, "I said run." So I started running. When we came out of the smoke, I saw there was another 15 to 20 military persons, and the next, I'd say roughly 20 people in civilian clothing. There was around 5 of them with like a sand-colored overcoat, and they had a logo on the side. Since everything was written in Spanish, I couldn't quite make out what it said. I know it said something about forestry and preserve that it said on there. I recognized the logo on one of the vehicles they had there. So when I came through the smoke, one of the guy in charge, he's a lighter skinned man, he grabbed me on my left arm, and I knew this was going to be trouble for me, so I pulled out my phone and I called Mano Ayala, my coworker, and I managed to get the call through before the guy took the phone away, and so I knew that once I got through to him that he would notify the correct people. So I heard in the background one of the guys saying, "Break the phone." And all the guy did is he took the phone away, and from there I don't know what he did with the phone. And then I heard in the background the next person saying, "Let's tie him up and let's rough him up a little." So the lighter skinned guy in charge, he told the military to tie my hands behind my back. So the guy took his black rope off of the shoulder and tied my arms behind my back. They then led me a little further into this road that they had that led further into Guatemala. They had a smaller red Toyota pickup, a bigger 4x4 Toyota pickup. They had a gray Toyota Hilux and a white Toyota Hilux. So they walked me into this road and leaned me against the vehicle, and they started questioning me, asking me who the owner of the land was, who I worked for. They asked me for my name. They asked who the owner of the tractor, who the owner of the bulldozer was. But I just kept telling him I was an employee. I didn't know anything. I couldn't help them with any information. And so then the guy in charge told the military, the men dressed in the Guatemalan military clothing, to load me up on the vehicle when it came in. So they started walking me further along the road, and I asked the guy, why do you have me tied up? Why, where are you taking me? And the guy, he told me, someone has to take the fault for this. Someone has to be of blame for the fire. I told him, but I am not the one that set the fire. I'm the one here outing the fire. He said, that doesn't matter. Then I asked him, where are you taking me? He says, that is not important to you. We will talk more when we reach out there. I knew if they take me away from the site, I know they will not release me. So I was thinking, what could I say to have them change their mind? Well, then I came to the idea, I will tell them I'm a Canadian. I then told them, you know what, I'm a Canadian. And I told them that I come from Steinbach, Manitoba. That is where my brother and sister live in Canada. I started telling him about the forest fires that they had in Alberta, how they had 2,400 homes burnt down and everything. So they started listening to what I was saying, and they stopped walking me further in. The guy in charge, a lighter skinned guy, he then went back to where we came from, and they sat me down there. I would say I sat there roughly 1 hour before the guy came back. When the guy came back, he had a complete change of heart. He said, don't worry, no te preocupes, don't worry, we will release you once the bulldozer comes in this side and does the work that we want it to do. So I said, all right. I heard the bulldozer in the distance drive by. It went so far into the Guatemalan side, I couldn't hear it anymore. I was scared that they were gonna now try and steal the bulldozer. And I heard also in the distance that they were bringing my tractor into the Guatemalan side. And so after the guy told me that after the dozer will do the work, and so it was more than half an hour when he came back again, and he then untied me, and he was explaining a couple things to me. And my Spanish isn't completely, fluent. I understand Spanish very well. Just the larger words I don't understand. So one thing that did catch my ear, what he was saying, is that he works alongside with the OEA, he said. So he said the OES, he said in Spanish. And I'm like, So to play the part that I was a Canadian, I was pretending like I was trying to figure out what he was saying, so I was nodding my head yes, And so they handed back my phone, and they started walking me back out the trail. And while walking out, I recognized one of the vehicles. I saw the vehicle's license plate number. The license plate number was a 8588. I believe the last two letters were CV. And that was the gray Toyota Hilux that they had in there. At one point, they had a green pickup come in with a logo on the side. I recognize it as a forestry logo. And they had a couple people climb off to go help fight the fire. So while I was walking out, I noticed that they had brought the tractor across the border line into the Guatemala side. When I reached the tractor, they started taking pictures of me getting back into the tractor. But I personally believe they wanted the tractor to stay there. They thought the tractor was too damaged for me to bring it back out, because I saw that the front left tire was completely off of the rim. The steps were bent back against the tractor tire. My sprayer tank with the water in the back, they had broken that. It's all bent to, and a couple pieces broken off. When I climbed into the tractor, I see that the steering wheel was broken and hanging to one side. But then they told me, all right, you can go now, leave. But the tractor, how damaged it is, I didn't know how I was gonna bring it out. But since I know my equipment very good, I managed to put a rock under one side of the axle to keep the tire in the air, and I brought the tractor out by using the side brakes. The side brakes, you have one brake for the right tire and one brake for the left tire. And like that, I brought the tractor out, steering the tractor with the brakes. When I managed to get the tractor out, I didn't make it all the way back because it ran out of diesel. So I do not know if they drained the diesel or if they punctured the tank so the diesel would come out. I didn't make it all the way back. I had to walk some of the way back to the ranch where my dad was. When I reached back, I find out that they still have the dozer driver working for them on their side. My dad managed to get a hold of the bulldozer driver, and the bulldozer driver had told him he only had fuel for 1 more hour, so he needed to come back into the Belizean side to refuel. So they said, all right, we'll send a couple people with you, tell your boss to bring the diesel personally. We want the boss to come with the diesel. But, so then he was bringing the bulldozer out, and the bulldozer driver told me later that he said they were walking along behind the bulldozer. And when he started to steer this bulldozer into the Belizean side, they started to run after him. To escape them, he drove the bulldozer through the big fire, and they couldn't follow him through the fire. And at that time, I got a report saying that there was 2 more soldiers along the road waiting for him, I guess waiting for the diesel. When I heard that, I took my plane, which I have a camera set up on it, so it's a live stream to my remote. I took my plane and I circled the bulldozer. So if the military men would wanna approach the bulldozer, I would have them on camera. So I brought the plane there and I circled the bulldozer all the way until he reached into the safe area. All the while, I did not see any military personnel. So maybe they heard the plane circling the bulldozer and didn't want to approach it because they knew if we have them on camera, then this is a whole nother situation for them. So that is what happened to me and what happened to me on that certain day. Now the following day, the BDF and a couple of different units of police, they came in to I guess investigate this thing. They said to us that we had to make a formal report at the police station. When we went in to the police station to give the report, I started telling him my story, and after a while, the guy who was taking my story, he went out of the room. I waited a good while there, and when he came back in, it's like he didn't want to hear my story anymore. And he at first had put in on my statement, Guatemalan military men, but he changed all of that and changed it to men in camouflage uniform. And the whole time after that, he was questioning me. He was trying to twist the story, trying to make me change the story. but I said the same story every time. Later, when they took me into the room, Ambassador Guerra and a couple people from the OEA, the head, Mr. Rosado, they had in there too. They had me tell the story to them again. And they were checking to see if I would say the same story that I had given them in the statement. My story, they said, lined up perfectly with what I had told them at first. But they were having some kind of differences with Mano Ayala's story. And I asked them, what do you mean? Then they told me, do you know anything about that, they could have set this whole thing up? I told them that is not true. They said, well, we have all the information in this cell phone here. We took it from Mano Ayala. I tell them, show me the messages, please. So they took the phone and they started reading the messages. And all the messages they read clearly says exactly what happened there. What I had told them was the truth. But somehow they were saying that, these messages prove that this is all a fabrication by us, that none of this actually happened. So from there I told them that you guys are cowards, you guys are scared of the Guatemalans, that is why you do not, that's why you want to sweep this under the rug as if it never happened. After a couple more words, they closed the meeting and I was free to go, but they told me Mano Ayala, he had to stay behind until they finished the investigation. So that is my story of what happened to me this past week and weekend.
Other communication them with inspector.
There is a problem that the borderline, in many places you cannot see if you're in Guatemala or in Belize. I mean, from north to south in Belize, right? But in this area where we are working, you can clearly see where the line is. We're not going to go over to Guatemala. I respect that part. But in this case, that, if the two governments get together and settle this matter, we Belizeans will be more safe. Why I say we'll be more safe is because you know already what had taken place back there. And this is not supposed to happen. So I would say that myself, I fear to go in that area because I know people would see who I am. I know people would be looking at and say, I know this guy. But that doesn't say that I'm not going to say or cover up what I see. I will expose anything that is to be exposed for the goodwill of our country and our people. Thank you.
Okay,
And there you had it. That was the press conference talking about the incident that occurred on Thursday. Of course, they're still clamoring for police to do a full investigation. And they've also said that they've not been spoken to by any representative from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to get their story. Of course, at a time like this story draws a lot of attention. There are some gaps here and there that people are discussing, and definitely we'll continue to follow it. But we're now going to show you a second story filed by our reporter, Michael Rodan. And
well, of course,
while we have that being queued up.
And I wanted to say, this is a very, and we said earlier before we started to air the press conference in full, This is an issue that we have to continue investigating. There are many interesting factors to it. One, Roger Plett claims the police didn't believe him. Obviously the report was eventually filed. But the issue of the fire, and if we look at what is taking place in the Guatemalan press, their version of the story, as we've seen to be the case in most instances, is not the same either. So our reporter went looking for some answers, and of course, yesterday they visited the scene where the fire was located and Roger Plett's farm. So we're going to take a look at that now. Yes, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the area where the fire was.
These fires, captured by footage from Roger Plett's drone, are what allegedly led to his detention last Thursday. According to reports from Guatemala's Prensa Libre, Mennonites started the fire, which destroyed Guatemalan forest. From the ground on Plett's farm, you can see the fire breaks which were created by a tractor and bulldozer working together. The entire area is still smoldering, some places covered with ash a foot deep. We hiked through it to the spot where Roger Plett was stopped by Guatemalans, his tractor damaged by soldiers and civilians. He's still feet away from the tree line, which we were told marks the border with Guatemala. Plett's employee, Manuel Ayala, was there that day and showed us the exact location. Being a naturally skeptical set, we wanted to see for ourselves that we were actually in Belizean territory. So off we wandered into the tree line. Not exactly a death-defying date with destiny, but an uneasy experience. Were we being watched by Guatemalan Caibiles, just waiting to make their move? We may never know, because we didn't see any. But just feet into the bush, we reached this clearing about 10 feet wide. We figure 5 feet is Guatemala, 5 feet is Belize. That seems fair enough. So we stayed on our 5 feet until we came upon this, an actual cement border marker, without incident. It was a hell of an unexpected border expedition, and it answered some questions, but raised more. The fire was clearly within Belizean territory, going strictly by the marker and cleared line, well within Belizean territory. So clearly Guatemalans came into Belizean territory, and the Belizean was seized on Belizean territory and taken into Guatemala. So obviously, there must be a high-level and intensive investigation underway. And obviously the OAS has been called in. A protest note dispatched? Well, see, here's the thing. This incident happened last Thursday. The media today were the first to go back to the site. No police, no BDF, no OAS, no officials from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. No release has been forthcoming from the ministry either. Not one. But the San Ignacio police did act. They detained Manuel Ayala over the weekend, accusing him of a mischievous act. We'll have more on that later in our newscast. Mike Rodon for News 5.
And we'll definitely have more on that story as it unfolds. And don't forget to tune in tonight at 6:30 for our newscast.
All right. Well, at this point, we're going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, it'll be for a conversation with representatives of the National Committee for Families and Children on the consultations for a new plan of action. So stay tuned.